Hello Reddit, this is James. I want to share my story of betrayal, despair, and rebuilding. It's a long story, but I hope it helps someone who might be going through something similar. It all started in college. I had just gotten out of the army, where I worked in intelligence, and I was studying to become a mechanic. Amanda was studying accounting. One afternoon, I sat down at a crowded table in the cafeteria, and there she was. She looked up and smiled at me. "You don't mind sharing, do you?" I asked. "Nope, as long as you don't steal my fries," she joked. I laughed, and we started talking. She was confident and easy to talk to. Before I knew it, we were laughing about the awful cafeteria food and how much homework we had. "So, what's your deal? Are you always this chatty with strangers?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Only when they're sitting in my seat," I shot back. She rolled her eyes but smiled. That was Amanda. Funny, quick, and kind of impossible to ignore. Over the next few weeks, I kept running into her on campus. Or maybe I was looking for her. One day, I worked up the nerve to ask her out. "Hey, Amanda," I said as we crossed paths near the library. "You want to grab dinner sometime? My treat. No cafeteria food, I promise." She looked at me like she was deciding if I was serious. "Okay, but I'm ordering dessert," she said with a grin. Our first date was at this little diner just off campus. She ordered pancakes for dinner and gave me a hard time about getting a burger. "That's so boring," she teased. "Live a little." "Pancakes for dinner isn't exactly wild," I shot back, and she laughed so hard the other diners stared at us. We talked until the place closed. She told me about her family, her dreams, and her ridiculous fear of clowns. I told her about my time in the army and how I ended up studying mechanics. By the end of the night, I couldn't stop smiling. "This was fun," she said as we walked back to campus. "Let's do it again," I said, trying to play it cool, but my face probably gave me away. "Maybe," she replied, but the way she smiled told me I had a chance. 2 years later, we got married. It wasn't a big wedding, just family and close friends. Amanda wore her grandmother's wedding dress, and I remember thinking I'd never seen anyone so beautiful. "You ready for this?" she whispered to me before the ceremony started. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life," I said, and I meant it. Looking back now, I wonder if there were signs even then, little things I missed because I was so focused on how happy I was. But at the time, all I could see was the woman who made me laugh, who made me feel like I could take on anything as long as she was by my side. In the beginning, Amanda and I couldn't get enough of each other. We were all over each other wherever we could be. On the bed, the couch, the floor, it didn't matter. Once, I walked through the door after work, and she was already pulling at my belt before I'd even set my bag down. "I've been waiting for you all day," she said, her voice low. I didn't even answer, just grabbed her and pulled her close. We didn't stop until we were both out of breath, sprawled on the living room rug. It wasn't gentle or slow most of the time. It was raw and messy. There were times when we didn't even bother getting fully undressed. She'd hike up her skirt, or I'd shove my jeans down just enough. We didn't care. We just went for it right then and there. She'd pull me close, her hands already unbuttoning my shirt. I'd grab her by the hips, pressing her against the wall or bending her over the kitchen table. "You're not getting away that easy," I joke, but neither of us was laughing for long. Amanda wasn't shy about making things clear. "Harder," she'd say, her nails digging into my shoulders. "Don't stop." We tried everything. She bought toys, handcuffs, even ropes once. "What do you think about this?" she'd ask, holding something up with a little smirk. "Let's find out," I'd reply, and we would. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation. We'd talk about what felt good and laugh if something didn't go as planned. It was fun and wild, and it felt like we could do anything together. Sometimes it was quick and rough. Other times it lasted for hours. There were nights when we'd fall asleep completely exhausted, only to wake up and start again. She'd pull me close in the middle of the night or whisper something bold in my ear first thing in the morning. "You're unstoppable," I told her once, laughing as she climbed on top of me. "You're not complaining," she shot back, grinning before kissing me hard. And I wasn't. I loved every second of it. It wasn't just about the physical part. It was the way we connected, how we couldn't keep our hands off each other. Back then, it felt like nothing could ever come between us. Amanda's obsession with having a child took over her life. After a year of trying and seeing nothing but negative tests, she started to unravel. Her frustration grew with every passing month, and our conversations became more tense and desperate. We went to a doctor hoping for some clarity. The diagnosis wasn't encouraging. Amanda had health issues that made it hard for her to conceive. Sitting in the office, she asked quietly, "So, there's still a chance, right?" The doctor sighed. "It's possible, but it's going to be very difficult. Treatments might help, but there's no guarantee." On the drive home, Amanda stared out the window without saying a word. That night, she broke down. "You should leave me," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Find someone else. Someone who can actually give you a family." "I'm not going anywhere," I said firmly. "We're in this together." Amanda tried to believe me, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Her obsession only deepened. She spent hours researching treatments and strange remedies online, clinging to anything that might work. After every attempt, she'd ask, "Do you think this time will be different?" "I don't know," I admitted, trying not to let my own doubts show. Amanda's self-esteem took a huge hit. She spent more and more time in front of the mirror, criticizing herself. "I'm not good enough for you," she said one day. "You'll leave me for someone younger, someone who's not a failure." "That's not true," I told her. "You're beautiful, and I love you." None of this changes that. Therapy didn't help much either. During one session, Amanda broke down completely. "I'm failing as a woman," she said. "I can't even give him what he wants most. I feel useless." "You're not useless," I said, holding her hand. "We'll figure this out." But nothing seemed to ease her desperation. One evening, Amanda came up with an idea. She invited her sister, Lisa, over to watch a movie. I thought it was just a distraction, but Amanda had something else in mind. She said it was for a casual movie night, but I could sense she had a plan. About halfway through the movie, Amanda turned to Lisa with a serious expression. "Lisa, I need your help," Amanda said, her voice trembling. Lisa looked confused. "Help with what?" Amanda hesitated but then came out with it. "We've been trying to have a baby, and nothing's working. I can't do it alone anymore. I need you to help us. Just this once." Lisa stared at Amanda like she'd lost her mind. "Amanda, you're my sister. That's not something you can ask me to do." "Please," Amanda begged, tears in her eyes. "You don't understand how desperate I am. Can't lose him. I'll do anything." Lisa looked at me, then back at Amanda, clearly torn. After a long pause, she sighed and nodded reluctantly. "Okay," Lisa said quietly. "If it means that much to you." Things escalated quickly after that. In the heat of the moment, I lost track of what was happening. Before I realized it, I was close to making a mistake that could never be undone. Amanda saw what was happening and stepped in immediately. "Stop!" she shouted, pushing me back. But it was too late. Something had spilled onto Lisa. Amanda froze for a second, then dropped to her knees in front of her sister. "I'll take care of it," Amanda said firmly. She began cleaning up, her hands moving quickly. Lisa gasped softly, clearly startled by the situation. "Amanda, what are you doing?" Lisa asked, her voice shaky. "I can't risk it," Amanda replied, her tone steady but desperate. "I almost lost everything. I won't let this happen." Lisa's face flushed as Amanda continued. For a moment, it felt like Amanda's obsession had almost led to her dream coming true. But she knew it wasn't supposed to happen this way. When it was over, Lisa sat back, stunned and silent. I don't know what to say," she murmured. "I'm sorry," Amanda said, sitting beside her and holding her hand tightly. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm so desperate. Lisa, thank you for helping." Lisa looked away, clearly conflicted, but she didn't leave. The room was heavy with silence, and I realized just how far Amanda was willing to go to hold on to what she thought she was losing. Her dream, her husband, and her sense of worth. I went out of my way to make Amanda feel like she was the most important person in the world, especially in bed. She wanted to try everything, and I made sure we did. We used toys, tried handcuffs, and even got into shibari. Whatever made her feel desired and confident, I was there for it. There were nights when it felt like her body was never clean because of the strange white liquid that seemed to coat her every hour. It became a running joke between us, but she wore it like a badge of honor. Back then, I thought we were closer than ever. But then, everything shifted. One day, something changed between us, and it happened so fast I didn't even see it coming. Despite this, on the surface, our marriage seemed perfect. We had our son, Oliver, and then a few years later, Amanda gave birth to twin girls, Mila and Sophie. After the twins, we moved into a big house in the suburbs. It had a huge yard where the kids could play, and Amanda seemed thrilled to be a stay-at-home mom. I worked hard as a diesel mechanic, pulling long hours and taking overtime whenever I could. I wanted to make sure they had everything they needed. Amanda stayed home with the kids, and I thought she was happy. The house was filled with laughter, and the kids were growing up surrounded by love. On the outside, it looked like we had everything. But deep down, something was off. I just didn't see it yet. Amanda was pulling away from me, but at first I didn't think much of it. She seemed tired most of the time, and I chalked it up to the stress of raising 3 kids and running the household. "You okay?" I'd ask when she looked distracted or distant. "Just tired," she'd reply, brushing it off. I didn't push because I figured she'd tell me if something was wrong. But as weeks turned into months, the distance between us grew. The little moments we used to share, like joking over coffee or cuddling on the couch, started disappearing. One night, she sat me down in the living room after the kids were in bed. Her face was pale, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I could feel something heavy coming. "I need to tell you something," she said, not meeting my eyes. My stomach dropped. "What is it?" She took a deep breath and finally looked at me. "I've been seeing someone else. For a year." I couldn't process her words. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "I've been having an affair," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "His name is Nathan Grayson. He's a divorce lawyer." A divorce lawyer. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. "So, what? You've been planning to leave me?" Her lips trembled, but she didn't deny it. "He's been helping me prepare. Just in case." "In case of what?" I demanded. "In case I don't let you keep sneaking around with him?" Tears filled her eyes, but her voice stayed calm. "I didn't want you to find out this way. I love you, but I love him too. I need you to understand that." "Understand?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You expect me to understand that you've been with another man for a year? And that he's your divorce lawyer? Do you even hear yourself?" She flinched but didn't back down. "I never wanted to hurt you, but Nathan makes me feel alive again. So I'm just what? Dead weight now? After everything we've been through?" "No," she said quickly. "That's not what I mean. I love you, David. I really do. But I love him too. Can't we find a way to make this work?" Her confidence stunned me. She was asking me to accept this, as if it were a simple solution. "You want me to share you?" I asked, my voice breaking. "You want me to sit back while you build a life with him too?" Amanda nodded, her expression pleading. "I don't want to lose either of you." I stared at her, trying to find the woman I married in the face of the person sitting across from me. "You already lost me," I said finally, "the second you decided I wasn't enough." She cried, but I couldn't comfort her. I didn't have it in me. All I could feel was betrayal and disbelief, the foundation of our life together crumbling beneath me. For a year, she'd been living a lie, and now she was asking me to accept it. It was too much. I stood by Amanda through everything. Her struggles with self-esteem, her doubts, her obsession with having a baby. I was always there for her. And now she was telling me Nathan made her feel like a woman again. "He makes me feel the way I did when we first got married," she said one day, not even looking at me. I stared at her. "Amanda, are you serious? I thought I made you feel that way." She shrugged. "I don't know. It's different now." That hurt more than I could put into words. It was like she was saying I wasn't enough for her anymore, even after everything we'd been through. She didn't even try to hide how much she had changed. One morning, She was getting ready for work and digging through her dresser. "Where are my panties?" she mumbled to herself, tossing clothes around. Finally, she stopped and shook her head. "Forget it. I don't need them today," she said like it was nothing and slipped on her skirt. I stared at her, confused. "You don't need them? What are you talking about?" "They're too tight," she said, smirking as she adjusted her skirt in the mirror. "I like it when everything breathes." I frowned. "Amanda, that's weird. Why are you acting like this?" She laughed. "What's weird about it? I'm just comfortable with myself. You used to love it when I left the house like this. Remember? That was different," I said, crossing my arms. "We were young and it wasn't like this." She rolled her eyes, grabbing her bag. "You're overthinking it. Relax." She turned toward the door, then added with a teasing smile, "Maybe you should try it sometime." And with that, she walked out, leaving me standing there. I couldn't make sense of what was happening to her, or to us. This wasn't the Amanda I knew. I didn't know how to bring it up without pushing her further away, so I stayed silent. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. I wasn't about to sit back and let this happen without doing something. If Amanda thought I was going to accept this, she didn't know me at all. First, I made sure to protect myself. I went to the bank and closed all our joint accounts. I transferred everything into a new account in my name and canceled all the automatic payments tied to her. She wasn't going to blindside me financially. When I got home, I started taking other precautions. I ordered a GPS tracker and a small recorder online. A few days later, I installed both in her car. If she was going to sneak around, I was going to find out exactly what she was doing. It didn't take long. By the third day, I had more answers than I wanted. The GPS logs showed her spending a lot of time at one address, his address, Nathan Grayson, not just stopping by either. She was there for hours at a time. The recorder confirmed it. I listened as she pulled into his driveway one afternoon. "Hey, babe." Nathan's voice came through the speakers. "Let me open the garage." A moment later, I heard her respond, her voice playful and familiar. "I've got my own key, remember?" Hearing that made my blood boil. She had a key to his house, his garage at least. They were so comfortable, so confident that nothing could touch them. It was like they didn't care who they hurt as long as they got what they wanted. That night, I confronted her about where she'd been. "So, Amanda, how was your day?" I asked, trying to keep my tone even. She shrugged, not even looking at me. "Same as always. Work was busy." "Busy, huh?" I said, leaning against the counter. "Too busy to come straight home?" Her eyes flicked toward me, wary. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I know where you've been, Amanda," I said, my voice steady. "I know about Nathan. I know about his garage. I know you have a key." Her face froze for a second before she forced a laugh. "You've been spying on me?" "Call it whatever you want," I shot back. "I call it protecting myself." Her confidence cracked just a little, but she quickly recovered. "So what now?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Are you going to keep playing detective? Or are we actually going to talk about this?" I stared at her, trying to find a trace of the woman I used to know. But all I could see was someone who thought she'd won, who thought I'd roll over and let her do whatever she wanted. "This isn't over," I said simply. "Not by a long shot." One afternoon, I parked down the street from Nathan's house. I couldn't shake the need to see for myself what Amanda was doing. Her car was in the driveway, so I waited. After a while, they came outside, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Amanda stepped out first, spinning around in her skirt like she was showing off. "How do I look?" she asked, her voice carrying to where I was hidden. Nathan leaned against the garage door, smirking. "You look like you're ready to put on a show." She laughed and began to sway her hips, moving to a rhythm only she could hear. "You like it, Daddy?" she said, her tone light and teasing. "You know I do," Nathan replied, his voice full of confidence. "Come on, let's see what else you've got." I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Amanda stepped closer to him, still dancing, her hands sliding down her sides. "You'd better appreciate this," she said with a grin. "Oh, I do," Nathan said, his tone low. "You're perfect, baby." Then she dropped to her knees in front of him, her voice turning softer but still loud enough for me to hear. "Daddy, do you want your future wife to do this?" Nathan didn't say anything for a moment, just stared down at her with that same smug grin. Then he said something I couldn't make out and leaned forward. What happened next made my breath catch. He didn't even care that they were outside. Amanda didn't seem embarrassed or uncomfortable. Instead, she laughed, wiping her face with her hand. "You're so bad," she said playfully, looking up at him with a smile. Nathan chuckled. "And you love it." Amanda stood up, smoothing her skirt, which was now stained. "You're lucky I do," she said, laughing again. I watched from the car, my chest tight as I took it all in. This wasn't the Amanda I thought I knew. Her carefree attitude, the way she smiled at him like he was everything she'd ever wanted. It was hard to wrap my head around. I started the car and drove off, unable to watch any longer. I tried to stay calm, but the image of Amanda with Nathan wouldn't leave my mind. Played on repeat, making it impossible to think straight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her kneeling in front of him, laughing, acting like none of it mattered. Couldn't let it go. Nathan had to pay for what he did to my family. He didn't just take Amanda away. He destroyed everything we had built together. That night, I made up my mind. I drove to his house, parking just down the street. I didn't care if anyone saw me. When he opened the door, his smug grin was the first thing I noticed. It made my blood boil. "James," he said, surprised but unfazed. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. Instead, I shoved the door open and pushed him back into the hallway. "Hey, what the hell?" Nathan said, stumbling. "You can't just—" "Shut up," I snapped, my voice shaking with anger. "You think you can take my wife, ruin my family, and just get away with it?" Nathan's expression shifted, a mix of fear and arrogance. "She came to me, man. It's not my fault your marriage was falling apart." That was the breaking point. I swung my fist, catching him across the jaw. He stumbled back, but I didn't stop. I grabbed him by the shirt and threw him to the ground. "You think this is a joke?" I shouted, my voice echoing in the empty house. "You think you can do whatever you want?" "Stop," he yelled, trying to crawl away. "You're crazy." I grabbed a heavy object, maybe a bat or a metal rod, I don't even remember, and brought it down on his knees. He screamed in pain, the sound echoing in my ears. "You don't touch someone's family," I said through gritted teeth. "You don't destroy someone's life and walk away like nothing happened." Nathan writhed on the ground, clutching his legs. "You're going to jail for this," he spat, his voice strained. "Maybe," I said, standing over him. "But at least you'll remember me every time you try to stand." I walked out, leaving him on the floor. I didn't care what happened next. All I knew was that I had done what I needed to do. I'm not proud of it. Hurting him didn't fix anything, but in that moment, it felt like the only way to answer what he had done to me, to Amanda, to our family. After that night, there was no turning back. The next day, I contacted a lawyer, Karen Lane. She came highly recommended, and from the moment I met her, I knew she wasn't just good. She was relentless. "I want a divorce," I told her in her office. "I also want full custody of my kids. They're not staying with her after what she's done." Karen nodded, taking notes. "We'll need strong evidence, but if what you've told me is true, we have a solid case. As for Nathan, have you considered filing for alienation of affection?" I frowned. "Alienation of what?" "It's a legal claim in cases of infidelity," she explained. "Essentially, we'll argue that Nathan intentionally interfered in your marriage, leading to its breakdown. With the evidence you have, we can hit him hard." "Do it," I said firmly. "I want him to pay for what he's done." Karen got to work immediately. She presented the court with the GPS logs, recordings, and photos I'd taken of Amanda and Nathan. The judge didn't hesitate to accept the evidence. Amanda didn't put up much of a fight. She knew there was no defending her actions. In the end, I was awarded full custody of Oliver, Mila, and Sophie. The alienation of affection lawsuit was the final blow. The court ruled in my favor, and Nathan was ordered to pay me $500,000 in damages. Life after the divorce was hard at first, But my kids became my main focus. They were the best thing to come out of my marriage to Amanda, and I was determined to give them a happy, stable life. We moved to a new house closer to my job, a smaller place that felt like a fresh start. Karen stayed in touch even after the case was closed. At first, it was professional, updates about the settlement, advice about custody arrangements, but over time it became something more. She was kind, understanding, and always seemed to know what to say to keep me going. One day, about 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I finally asked her out. "I know this might be crossing a line," I said nervously, "but would you want to grab dinner sometime?" "Not as my lawyer. Just as Karen." She smiled. "I'd like that." We started dating not long after, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was building something real again. Karen wasn't just my lawyer. She became my partner. Together, we're creating a new life, one where I can finally feel whole again. As for Amanda, she realized her mistakes, but it was too late. She's living alone now, working as an accountant. The vibrant, confident person I once knew seems to have faded. Nathan's fall was even harder. He lost his career, his money, and even the ability to walk properly after our confrontation. Looking back, this experience taught me that infidelity comes with a price. But more importantly, it showed me that life after betrayal is possible. It's not easy, but it can be better than anything you imagined before.